you can almost taste it. If you are finally permitted your 1 hour of outdoor exercise, you know that if you disobey any rule, your chance of freedom will be stripped away. So you follow every rule, do everything right, and are finally given a chance to go through the gates. Only to find out that life out there is harder than you think. You have nowhere to go, no money to live, and in order to avoid going back inside, you must be an upstanding citizen, have a job, and do everything your officer tells you to do. Probation and parole are considered alternative forms to incarceration, with the major difference being that parole is granted after showing exemplary behavior in prison versus probation, which is in lieu of your time served. These programs are designed to help people stay out of prison and help them get back on their feet. Sadly, the criminal justice system has become a corrupt institution, creating an endless cycle where thousands of people are stuck between the chance of a new beginning and the return to prison. The goal is to create an environment that provides support for rehabilitation and avoid stumbling blocks resulting in prison time. Re-entry back in society can be extremely challenging. Correctional facilities provide minimal support and inadequate resources and assistance. Many people suffer from serious mental illnesses, and while they do receive treatment, it is usually through medication rather than counseling. Because inmates are not receiving appropriate treatment, the illness can progress, causing the individual to pose a threat to themselves as well as others. They are released in society with little to no support and eventually end up back in jail. Even when mental illness does not play a role in an individual's rehabilitation, other barriers exist, which are often created by external forces such as limitations of education, housing, and employment. Obtaining these can be quite challenging for anyone who has been released from prison. However, they are required to be on probation and parole. Getting a job is undoubtedly one of the most challenging things for an ex-criminal. Unfortunately, many employers discriminate against those who have a record. Usually, released inmates are only able to find jobs that require little skill. These jobs hardly pay minimum wage and have little to no benefits. No matter the offense, an employer will see a criminal record and immediately deny the application. This takes a toll, and many end up feeling excluded from the community they once belonged in. Despite the fact that several 100,000 felons will be released each year, the nation's system for managing them within the community is inept. This breakdown causes a continuous cycle of release and return to the prison system. Violations should result in punishment. However, the first option should not be the immediate return to prison. This should serve as a wake-up call that our probation and parole systems are not healthy, not functioning as intended, and need to be reformed. This issue caught the attention of Meek Mill and Jay-Z, American rappers with a following of over 20 million. Both artists paired up with sports and entertainment arenas to create the Reform Alliance, a non-profit organization dedicated to probation, parole, and sentencing reform in the United States through legislation and lobbying. In 2020, the group lobbied for 3 bills, which eventually passed, that prevent the immediate return to prison as a result of any misdemeanors. Reform Alliance has traveled to over 30 states for people seeking help. Recently, Meek Mill played basketball with a group of young girls before the 76ers game to spotlight the reformed criminal justice system. The goal is to provide an holistic approach to ensure the well-being of each individual throughout their probation. Once their sentence is completed, it is the hope that they have the resources to ensure a successful transition back into society. Reform Alliance has created an Instagram account that spotlights probation and parole and anyone who has suffered from these programs. This account educates millions of people how the system is failing and how activist groups can help. By becoming a part of Reform Alliance, you will see the latest petitions, stories, and successes. I plan to work with administration to hold an assembly in order to bring a representative from Reform Alliance. This representative will educate and promote awareness. As part of the presentation, we want to encourage students to register for Reform Alliance and sign up for the latest petitions. There are opportunities to help in as little or as much as you want. As you can see, the criminal justice system has created a vicious cycle from incarceration to release to imprisonment. In spite of the fact that there are probation and parole, the system is failing and has made it nearly impossible to succeed. Reintegration into society has many barriers. Most of those released from prison do not have access to the basic needs, such as other things. Groups have been established in order to help people, teaching them skills for the betterment of their emotional and mental health. We must ensure that this issue comes to the forefront of our community so that true freedom can be experienced by all. Thank you.
said that people are normally treated as with medication and not counseling for mental health. Like, why is that bad? Using medication
So like many good systems like don't want to waste the money on like therapists or psychiatrists, and like when you get medication, you're supposed to be followed up by a doctor, in this case a psychiatrist, and if they're not being tracked, like the medication can just like either give them like bad thoughts or just it won't be as effective. But because the prison system doesn't like want to waste money, people are just getting medication which isn't actually like effective.
How do you think that like having private and like for-profit prisons like incentivizes and continues the like people going back to jail pipeline, where like it's cost effective for them to have more people in jail because they make more money?
Can you say the first part like a little louder?
Yeah, sorry. Like for-profit prisons, like private prisons that make money off of people being in their jails and prisons, like how does that factor into people who are released from prison and then like go back to prison, and like how does that help perpetuate the cycle?
Yeah, so like many probation and parole officers like work for those prisons, and so no matter what, they get paid, but they usually feel like an incentive to be like, oh, like maybe they'll get more money if I send them back to jail, and they get like for any kind of like bad thing that they do, like even if it's just like they missed a meeting because you're required to have a meeting with the probation officer, they can get resulted back, like they can go back to jail, and then they just like stay there because they're like they did something wrong even though they didn't.
What would you say to an employer, because they're trying to do the right thing by like protecting their constituency by not hiring somebody with a record, but like you're saying you should give people a chance, which you totally should. So like what would you say to an employer who like ought to consider such an applicant? Like what should it be looking for that makes it like an okay choice to make?
Yeah, so like in order to be like be out of prison, you have to go through several steps. So like they are safe, and many people who like are out of prison didn't actually do things that are like bad. Some people are in like for tax fraud, and I guess that's like not a good thing, but they're not a harm to anyone. And I think also like most of the time your records should be expunged, and just keep in mind that like it's like logistics, but they actually are supposed to be like not in the system, and they're actually good people.